Guys, I want to welcome you to another episode of the Advisory Board podcast, where we bring in experts in the franchise community who can share insights, wisdom, experience to help you build a memorable and a thriving brand. And I've got with me Pete First today. And now he's been around for about 25 years in the industry, so a lot of you probably know Pete, especially if you've been running in circles of franchise development. He's been doing that his whole career pretty much. And he's the Chief Development Officer at BrightStar Care, which is an incredible brand. I mean, if you think about it this way, one thing that makes them a little bit different is they have RN care own, like RNs make the decisions on care. So they provide the highest level of care you can. And but they also we were joking about this before, but their franchisees probably sleep really well at night because they live in their communities, they take good care of their people, and their whole role is just to help alleviate strain and give people dignity and love at the end of life care. So love what you guys do, Pete. A couple of fun anecdotes about Pete are he grew up in kind of the Wyndham system in Windmark. He's also I didn't ask you, but are you a Twins fan since you're up in Minnesota, or what? Who's your team up there?
Well, yeah, we're Twins fans and we're Minnesota Wild fans. We have a lot of hocky fans up here,
Yeah, I'll bet. And Vikings? You a
and
Vikings?
Vikings, of course. Yeah,
Okay,
that's a
good. I should have asked.
automatic.
Yeah, good. Hoping you weren't a Green Bay fan up there. You might get murdered on the
Oh,
street.
yeah, that's a tough one. Tough one when they cross that border into Minnesota.
Yeah, agreed. Hey, so tell me before we jump into the topic, tell us a little bit more about you, Pete. Tell us a little bit about BrightStar and what you guys have been doing, and then we'll jump into our topic, guys, which is how do you create like what are some key strategies to help you create massive growth with your franchise brand this year? So, Pete, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. I appreciate being here and looking forward to a great call. Yeah, so for me, I've been involved in the franchise development side since right out of college. So 20 plus, 25 plus years, who knows how many that actually adds up to be right now. But it's been a while. So I just love that side of the business. I love working with entrepreneurs and people that are coming into the business. And that's really where I found my niche and where I just tend to really thrive in that type of environment and bringing folks in that are looking to make an investment in their future and then helping them do that. So really love that part of the business. And I've been with BrightStar now going on about 7 years. So I have had a good run here. And BrightStar, it's a brand, as Dave, as you mentioned, we're making a difference in the lives of families and we make a difference in the communities that we're in. And from a franchise offering, there's really a lot for a franchisee to grab hold of and take advantage of here because there's a lot of different home care companies out there, but we go so far beyond that. We can do the traditional personal care, companion care, but where we really differentiate is we get into skilled care. So things like infusions and things that are happening in hospitals that we can do in the home. We
Nice.
also do medical staffing. And then we have a really large national accounts platform that our team internally at the home office works to develop accounts across the country for our franchisees. So it's a
Wow.
big differentiator for us, and it's really exciting part of our business. It's really growing, and our franchisees are really benefiting from that.
I love it. I love it. And it's a great industry. Huge demand, the silver tsunami, right? Like all these folks that really need the dignity and the end of life care. And it's a thriving segment within franchising specifically. So that's fantastic.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about this topic. Like, will you because you've seen so much and you guys have had a great run at BrightStar. I'm glad that you were able to make some time to share some insights with us. Tell us a little bit about, I mean, one of the first areas that you mentioned that is critical in building, a rapid like success growth engine for a franchise brand is having a strong brand and really strong validation. Can you
Yeah.
dive into that with us? Like how one, building a strong brand, like a lot of people would say, yeah, 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 right? Like, how do we do that, right? But how do you do that? Like, how has BrightStar built such a good brand over time?
Yeah, I think for us, because of the type of business that we're in, it's been really built on quality and focusing on that highest standard of care that we can provide. So if you're looking at your industry, how can you provide the highest standard of whatever you're doing? Whether it's depending on what market you happen to be in, but starting with that as the foundation where you want to be the absolute best and provide a level of care that's beyond anything else that's out there,
Mhm.
that's really where it starts, and to have that mentality and that drive. So that's where BrightStar, when the brand was founded, that's what that was built on. And then what that does for you is that because of that higher standard, that also goes into the franchisees that you're selecting to bring into the system.
Hmm.
You want to have the best people, and then that in turn goes to them, to the franchise owners, and they're bringing in the best caregivers that they can or the best employees that they can. So it really starts with that foundation of core values that you set, and being that higher standard of in your industry, and then growing from there. Because once you've got a good foundation like that, now you can continue to build off of that, because you have that validation process in place,
Hmm.
where prospective franchisees then can talk to your owners. They find some real similarities in what they're doing today with the franchisees that you have, and it's just a great positive way for the brand to grow.
Well, one thing I love about what you said, brand is one of the first few things you said included the franchise owners, right? Like it
Correct.
doesn't matter how good your logo. It's a nice logo, by the way, on the wall behind you. Doesn't matter how good the logo is and the colors on the pamphlets and the web pages. Those are all part of brand, right? Like how we represent ourselves, how we show up digitally. But the thing that's showing up in the local markets everywhere is your franchise owner, right? That's who's representing the brand. You can't get any resonance and magnification of the value of the brand if the people that represent the brand aren't the right people. So I'm really glad you said that, because I think that's key in this segment.
It really is, because the brand is the national view, but then all of these franchises and franchisees in their locations, that's an individual location in that specific market, and they are the face of the brand in that market. So real critical.
Yeah, and the franchisor's role is to build the successful brand and then to protect the brand, right? Like
Correct.
make sure and the who's pop quiz for everyone. Who's the number one person who can protect the brand better than everybody else? Who's in the best position to do that? This guy right here. I guess I got to point in the opposite direction, but like franchise development, right? You guys are the tip of that spear of protecting the brand by who you bring into the franchise system.
We need to have like-minded people, and with our business, it's very rewarding. But one of the first things that we look at when we're talking with a candidate is what's their motivation. And
Mhm.
what we've found is that I'd say 85 to 90% of our franchisees have had some experience with our brand in some way, or maybe not directly with BrightStar, but maybe with home care. They've seen it in action, maybe with one of their grandparents or their own parents, or another loved one in their family. And a lot of times what they saw probably wasn't that great. So they always knew that there was a way to do this better. And so when we have somebody that can come in with a business acumen, great at managing teams, but also has that heart, they have the heart for this business, it's a home run, because that's really what we need. We need somebody that really cares.
Mhm. Well, and so this is a little bit off topic, it's a tangent, but I'm curious, what happens when you find somebody in this franchise development process who's financially ready, great background, well educated, good at managing people, but they're kind of a jerk, like they don't really care, they're in it for the money. Is that a go or a no-go for you guys,
No
typically?
go.
Yeah.
It's a no go. Yeah, core
Yeah.
values is a big piece for us. We're just not. We don't want to. Like early in my franchise career, somebody told me, don't blow your career on one deal. And so don't bring in a franchisee that's going to mess up the system, just to get a deal done. And
Mhm.
it's the same way no matter how large your brand is. If you bring in the right people, because you're not only bringing in somebody that's going to represent that market, but they'll probably have neighbors, and we need to have them work well together. And one of the things with our brand in particular, and probably with most brands, is the franchisees have a really tight network. They work well together. They have meetings together, whether it's statewide or regional, and they are great sounding boards for each other. So you need to make
Yeah.
sure that cultural fit is going to be right for the brand and for those in the area.
Yeah, no, you're spot on. I love that. But this goes back to the point of how do you build a good brand? It doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen overnight, but your brand is your people and how they execute on the strategy. So you talked about validation just a little bit, but let's go back to it. So building this good brand, getting the right people, what impact does that then have on the culture of the franchise owners and your ability to have strong validation when you're trying to bring more owners in?
Yeah, the franchisees that we have, they're real good at giving us feedback too. So when they
Mhm.
talk with a prospective owner, if they see something or hear something that just doesn't click with them, they're quick to let us know that this is what we heard, and not sure if this is the right fit. So not only are we sort of making that decision on our end, our franchisees are helping us too as they talk with prospective owners coming into the system.
Mhm.
Validation is key because every franchisee that we have today was in the same shoes as the one that they're talking to. They needed to talk to an owner to get a good idea of what the business was all about. Let's get out of the franchise development world. Let's talk to somebody that's actually operating the business and get their perspective to make sure that what they're hearing from the franchisees, and we have them call anybody they want. We give them the list in the FTD. They can call any owner that they want to. Because we do want the prospective owner to have a good cross sections of franchisees to talk to all across the country too, because we're going to get different things. But that validation piece, it's critical in any brand because owners want to talk to somebody, or franchisees want to talk to somebody that's doing it, and we have it's an important part of our process.
Yep. No, I agree with that 100%. I did a lot of validation calls when I was a franchise owner, and there were many times where I would call the owner, the CEO up of the brand and say I wouldn't move forward. Like I actually, no joke, I had a validation call with the guy once, and he was totally hammered at like 6:30 at night. And I was like,
Yeah,
bro, it is maybe it's like 7, but I was like, you didn't start 10 minutes ago, bro. Like you've been drinking since what, you clock out and hit it hard. Like, and I was like, look, nice guy, but like if he on a Tuesday evening, if he's hammered at 7 o'clock at night, like I don't
yeah,
think you want him in your system. Like, what's he gonna be like if he's at a networking event with a bunch of schools? So, I just saw red flags everywhere on that. But anyway,
yeah. And
I,
and we look at the same way. It's like what are you have to kind of envision, since this person is the face of a brand that's built around care, how is that going to translate?
yeah.
So yeah, very important.
Agreed. Agreed. Well, so let's shift though. Let's talk about organization. So part of the brand is also marketing, right? So how do you build and organize an effective marketing plan around growing the brand that has synergy across multiple channels? Tell us a little bit about what you guys have been building and how that helps you to do this.
Yeah, so we have our traditional pay-per-click programs. Having it. Let's just start with the website. I mean, gotta have a great website that's interactive, that and with many calls to action, so you can have the opportunity to talk to somebody. So to have them fill out a form and start that process. As we've all heard, a lot of the research is being done before they even actually talk to somebody. So they're doing a lot of, especially with AI and everything else, you can find out so much about a brand before you even have to talk to somebody like myself in franchise development. So we end up getting a lot of very educated candidates that come through because they've done so much research. But let's start with the website, having a great website, and then driving people to that website.
Mhm.
We have an organized pay-per-click program that is very specific when it comes to markets. So that's the beauty of pay-per-click today, is that you can target specific markets, you can
Mhm.
target parts of cities, you can really zero in on where you want to grow, and then being on top of the vendor that is handling that program is
Mhm.
really important too. We're real aggressive. We want to try new things, so we're constantly pushing our vendor, who's great, but constantly pushing them to, if you hear of somebody that's doing something, let us give that a try too, or we'll try this and see how it goes. But
Mhm.
being open to those changes, because with pay-per-click, Google changes things all the time. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so making sure that you're on top of that and making those changes along with it is key. So now we've got the pay-per-click piece of it, but then today content is key. I mean,
Mhm.
we have content that goes out on a weekly basis, from franchise development, but then our consumer side also has content that they're pushing out, and so there's multiple different areas that we're getting the name BrightStar out there. We do a lot of franchisee features, a lot of grand opening features. LinkedIn is big for us on that, so we're continuously putting that out. But then what we do is, once we have a blog that we created and have it on LinkedIn, then that goes back out to all of our cold leads. So we're constantly continuing to fill that drip campaign funnel.
Mhm.
And we've had situations where a franchisee has come to us. They first inquired about the brand 5 years ago, and now they're back because we can go through our CRM and see how many emails they opened, and they opened 150 emails,
Hmm.
and
Whoa.
we just kept in front of them, and then the timing was better. They came in, and now they're on board. So,
Yeah.
having those different channels to make sure that you're staying in front of people.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I've seen this statistic kind of play out across lots of industries I've consulted in and worked in. But 2 to 3% of the addressable market is ready to buy now, right? But you don't know which 2 to 3%. And so
Right.
I love that you have effective nurturing campaigns that are ongoing with good, valid, like conversation starting, value driving information.
Yeah.
That's really key. I see people who send out these chest thumping newsletters that all they do is say, "We're the best, we're the best, we're the best, we're the best." And no one reads that crap. But if you have somebody opening 150 emails, like you guys are sending out value and enticing content that's getting people to open up, and that's key. So you can't just do it. You also need to do it right. It sounds like you guys are really doing the email content very well.
Yeah, it's and there's key things that are ways to we're in healthcare, so that's a different animal that also changes all the time too. So we're able to put out different content for that, but we
Yeah.
also utilize any kind of PR that we get.
Mhm.
So if we're getting if let's say our chief marketing officer is does an article in home care news, home health news, we'll take that and we'll utilize that in FD and push that out to all of our leads. So anything that we can get that's of value and it's educational like that, it doesn't really talk about contacting us again about the franchise. It's just here we just continue to provide them with more and more content and more almost like an educational process all the way through.
Yeah.
Um, and then ultimately they realize and understand where the value is and how we can make this work for them.
Yeah, that's excellent. Well, content is king. It's shifting though, right? It's your content your I'm sure a lot of the content is going on the web page. You're developing a lot of on page and also blog content, things like that are driving local SEO and also national SEO value. But there's also like the AI search engines now that we've got what is it, AIEO they call it. It's alphabet soup now, but we got to make sure that you're writing content that the AIs are going to recognize and then synthesize quickly, and then they can pull it into their results. Because I bet you I use Perplexity to search for things probably 15% of the time over Google, and Google uses Gemini in their search engine now. So you're the first thing you see in every search is the AI summary of whatever you're looking for. So I know you guys are working on that. I just want to throw a plug in there so people understand the landscape is shifting fast in that way that even consumers, a lot of people use ChatGPT, Perplexity, Claude, whatever to Google, like not to Google, well, I just use that as a verb, to search for things now, where it used to be only be Google, and even Google's using AI. That's why, what, a year and a half ago, everybody's SEO went poof, like dipped. It was May of last year, actually, because all these AI algorithms got rolled out in Google search. So now they're not going to your websites, they're reading the summaries in the browser, which is kind of different.
That's a great point because we just had our monthly overview with our company that does pay-per-click in our website, and we always look at the entrances to see where they're coming from. And every month, the entrances from AI continue to pop up and
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
grow. So Chat GPT right now for us is the number one source or number one lead source from AI. But just in this last round, I think there were four other AI uh, or AI platforms that were sending leads our way. So it's continuing to grow. And you're right, developing the content that fits that is going to be critical going forward.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And even you and I saying this is 90 days old, right? Like people should have been
Yeah,
making that shift actually probably a year ago, but people didn't really know that it was going to change that much a year ago, I don't think, but we see it now. So
yeah,
time to adjust, right? Always adjust.
yeah. The one thing that I didn't mention that we do a lot of too is video.
Mm,
So lots of video content. Um,
yeah.
you know, folks will watch a 35-second or a minute and a half video versus read a whole bunch of content. So we do a lot of things on video. We utilize our franchisees. We do some high quality that we're just going to roll out now. Real production level types of content, of video content. But then we also do less formal things with our owners. Kind of a mini webinar and Q&A, and that really hits well with prospective candidate or prospective franchisees.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that. It's funny you say it because I usually preach about video. So glad you covered that soundbite for me. But video is king. It is king, and it's short form video now. It's the 30-minute recorded webinar. I mean, if you want to use that as a friction point in your sales process to filter out people that aren't that serious, I mean, go for it. But be cautious because people's attention spans are 3 to 5, max.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Glad you guys are using video well. And tell us, are you infusing that into your email campaigns, just using it on the website, using it in social? Where are you guys plugging video into your
All of it.
strategy?
Yeah. Really a lot of it into our drip campaigns. So tons of it there,
Yeah.
incorporating it onto our website. So one thing with us, like, we don't do much on Facebook, and we just haven't found that works for our particular brand. I know it works really well as a lead generator for others, but from a social aspect, we're doing most of ours on LinkedIn,
Mhm.
and that's been a good driver for us.
Yep. Yeah, same. I mean, if you ever follow my feed, you'll see it's almost all video stuff. I find just a personal anecdote since we're talking about video, what I find works the best, what performs the best, or when I have something that's abnormal or maybe a little slightly more personal, like 4th of July posts, like when I show, I haven't even put that out yet, but we do a 200-foot slip and slide in the backyard. And all my kids are pretty much adults now, so all their friends and even the kids of my friends are coming over. But like but if you have like a real value tie-in, like a life lesson about that ties into business, but you're showing something like that blending, when I hybridize it, people love that. They love it. It's more
That's great.
personal. So the videos, if just advice about that for people listening. If you're going to share videos about your brand, share videos about from your franchisees talking about your brand, not the CEO beating a chest in a boardroom kind of a video like that. That doesn't work very well anymore. That's like an 80s, 90s style video. But now people want to see real people doing real things and saying words that are authentic and not scripted. That's the most powerful video content that I've seen. What's your opinion on that, Pete?
No, I think that's great. Yeah, I think that anytime that we can have our franchisees talking and sharing their experiences and it's a testimonial, but it's really not, because it's just they're just talking
Mhm.
and being a part of the discussion, and it's authentic, and that resonates so well with people that are considering joining a brand.
Yeah, I totally agree. Well, and that's just a truism across any type of marketing and sales anywhere, right? That the voice that they want to hear is their voice coming from someone else that's just like them, from their
Yeah,
peer. So that story is way more powerful than my story or your story, because we're trying to help people make a buying decision, right?
absolutely.
Yeah. So let's talk about a shift, because one of the things that that BrightStar does very well is we talk about growth. So these are good elements to growth, right? Proper marketing, having good validation, a strong brand. How do you get that strong brand? But then there's this foundation that has to be in place if you're going to grow fast. You need to have a really strong operational component that can support the growth. Otherwise, well, we know what happens. I won't name any brands, but you guys, we all know 4 or 5 brands off the top of our tongue, top of our head. They grew too fast and they blew up, right? So, how do you prevent that by having a strong operational group? What does BrightStar do? Tell us about you guys.
Yeah, so we've got we've got a sort of a segmented training process once a new franchise owner comes on board. So we actually have like a 27-month program of onboarding for new franchisees. So you've got your 3 months before you open, and then they're with a specific group of coaches that only are working with new owners to help them develop and grow. So having them get out of the gate strong just helps with your future growth. So as a new franchisee is talking to a candidate that's considering coming in, they're like, yeah, we have had our, we were walking hand in hand all the way through until that 2 year point. Then we're ready for our regular coach, and
Mhm.
business got off to a great start. And so that's what we want to hear. But you've got to have a team that can do that. So we've
Yeah.
been adding as we had really good growth over the last few years and continuing into 2025, and we added to that support team at the front end to make sure that all of the new owners coming in had a real good, solid foundational growth, to get their business out of the gates fast. So it's just so key. So you kind of think about, well, now once, how do you support this system globally when you've got across the country with your coaches or field operations people, but you've got to get them through those first couple of years first to ensure that they're going to come out of the gate strong. So we really emphasized that initial training and onboarding piece to make sure that that was all buttoned up.
Well, I just want to make sure everybody heard what you said. The first couple of years, they need the guidance and the coaching, not the first couple of months. And that's most
Yeah,
platforms, most programs that I'm aware of, they have a couple of month launch and training program. Then they go into big, regular field coaching. So let's touch base once a month. Let's touch base casually. That's a recipe for slower growth, lower AUV, weaker validation, weaker
yeah,
brand. Like that's kind of the standard playbook in franchising. But I didn't realize when I asked this question, you were going to drop something like that on. I was like 27 months of
yeah.
structured training, and but they're how often are these guys meeting with their coaches? Is it weekly?
Yeah, so weekly they've got, the beauty of everything is we do it virtually,
Yeah,
for the
sure,
most
sure.
part.
Hmm.
But it's yeah, I mean it's critical because there are so many things. If you put a franchisee out into the system after a few months, and now they're grouped up with others that have been in 5 years, 10 years, but maybe they probably land in a region,
Hmm.
so that regional coach or that regional field person handles that group. Well, they've got franchisees in that group that have been in the system 10 years, 20 years,
Hmm.
totally different experience level than somebody that's brand new who's just experiencing all this together. So
Hmm.
when we have our group of new owners, they stay together all the way through because they're experiencing things at the same time.
Yeah.
And the coaches that we have are specifically addressing them where they're at. So they're not getting trained on something that they're going to need 5 years from now. They're getting trained on something that they're going to need next week or today or in the next 6 months. So it allows them to ramp up at a steady pace,
Hmm.
uh, where they're getting the information at the right time.
Yeah, perfect. Well, it's funny how revolutionary that idea can be in this space. And I've talked to several brands about it. In fact, I worked with a brand who was working through that moment or that transition where they were like, everybody's got a coach. And then they're like, ooh, nope, we're only going to have coaches. This coach is excellent at the first 6 months, the launch, get things started. This coach is the expert at 6 months to 2 years. This one's the expert at building like a business enterprise. So they got more experience and they can read a P&L better than anybody. They can coach them on their finances and their metrics. And like those are all different skills which means they usually need to be within different humans. And emerging brands don't have to worry because everybody's launching, right? But
Right.
eventually they have to grow up and add people and they can read a P&L properly and do business coaching. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. And
Yeah. The needs of the franchisees change as they get more mature. So yeah,
yeah.
and it's fun to watch it. It's great because we've got franchisees who've been in the system, with BrightStar 15 plus years, and you know they're looking at things and bringing things to us, and it's just fun when you get to that level where you've got some really smart, very smart franchise owners,
Yeah.
that make it great for us too.
Yeah, I totally agree. Well, and you said something key, which is as you're going through this coaching process, you also have to listen, right? I remind people, hey, God gave us two ears, one mouth, not just because it would look weird if we had two mouths, but because we're supposed to listen more than we talk. And yeah, I'm glad you guys are doing that. That's a superpower of brands that really thrive that I've found.
Absolutely.
So tell me, so let's go back for a second. Uh, all these things that you're talking about, this requires an investment, right? An investment in the operational expenses of the company, which can hurt the bottom line of the franchisor, which means a lot of franchisors are like, oh no, like they're afraid of making the investment. How many people are on your field coaching? Do you mind sharing? Like How many coaches do you guys have now?
Yeah, I think our corporate team internally is about 120, I think overall, with all of our departments. And then the coaches, I would say there's 10 or 12 at this point now.
Mhm.
So it's not a huge number. We've got 417 locations open today. Um, but they do handle regions, but they handle regions based, or they handle segments, I should say. So
Mhm.
you've got your based upon the revenue level that our franchisees are at, they
Mhm.
handle that group. So it's sort of like how you explain with your brand that you just mentioned, that having different experience levels for different levels of franchisee.
Mhm.
That's similar to the way we're structured too. But
Yeah.
yeah, you got to have the team in place to do that, so your coaches aren't stretched too
Mhm.
far, um, because they'll need, and as what you've probably seen this too, as franchises get more experience, they need less support.
Right.
um, but we still stay close, obviously, because there's so many things in that when the franchisee reaches that level that are exciting, that we can work with them and with others on to get them to that point.
Oh, 100%. And now we didn't talk about this beforehand, but how do you guys engage? Do you guys have an FAC? How do you
We
engage
do.
and solicit insights and guidance from the franchise community? How do you guys do that?
Yeah, we do have an FAC, and so that it's a yeah, it's a great group that of owners from all across the country. So we've got a good cross section there in different regions. We're also really active with having franchisees involved in various committees, and I think that that's where they can make it more, a real direct impact. So like with the marketing committee, if we're going to roll out a new marketing campaign, we have franchisees involved with that.
Hmm.
Technology is a big part for us, so we have franchisees that are involved with our tech committee, to help make those decisions, because what they can do is they can bring in things and needs that we're hearing from the field and bring those into a smaller group setting where we can really start to address that. So
Yeah,
our franchisee involvement is very high.
love it. Yeah, as it should be, because
Yeah,
they know the market better than you do, right? As the franchisor, they have to.
yeah,
Yeah, I love
yeah,
it. Well, the last thing I want to wrap up on this because we were talking about the AFDR, the Annual Franchise Development
yeah.
Report, and how it's kind of more damning than insightful sometimes in the industry. But when we talked about that, you mentioned no, we yeah, in the franchise development process. If you want to have hyper growth, you got great marketing, all these things, but you got to do something unique with the leads. You got to follow up effectively. Do you mind sharing a little bit about what are you guys doing to make sure as you guys are generating leads that aren't cheap, that you and your team make sure that those leads you're getting the most juice out of the squeeze?
Yeah, so immediate follow-up and speed to lead, that's a real thing.
Mhm.
It sounds like a tagline, but it really does matter, because, especially depending on where the lead's coming from, they may be getting if it's coming from a portal, 5 brands may have gotten it, or
Mhm.
or more.
Yeah.
So being the first person to make contact with that lead is important. We're utilizing AI and texting to make sure that we're getting that immediate response to the candidate, and then ensuring that follow up all the way along. When you mentioned that report, it amazes me how many leads are not responded to. I mean,
Yeah.
it just blows my mind,
Yeah.
so,
I know.
because
It's
they've
so
taken the time to request information and have a conversation. So
it's
it's that
so
part's
much
great.
money. So much money burned, right? That's what kills me. Like we do the charts right before they're like, this is how much money you spend to get a lead. And I'm like,
Yeah,
no wonder we're spending so much money on leads on average because you're not freaking calling them. It's crazy.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So having that follow up, and then we talked about drip campaigns too. So if somebody's not
Mhm.
ready to enter that process, just having a consistent follow up, that way as well, that's worked wonders for us.
Yeah, and we always talk internally. I mean, I love that you're like he's like preaching my doctrine right now. Like, yeah, speed the lead. No, like every lead should be being nurtured at any time. Just a certain time, except for the DNCs. If someone's like, "Don't call me ever," like obviously you respect all that, right? But
Yeah.
anybody who hasn't told you that they're not interested or replied stop to texting or whatever, like you should be nurturing them forever until they say stop or they become part of the fold and most of them never do either, right? On average. So but you're also building goodwill, communicating value like all around the world with all these different contacts. Even if they're not buying, they might be the one that says, "Hey, at a dinner party, you want to buy a franchise? I've been getting these emails from this BrightFran group. You might want to look at them. I think you'd be a good fit there because now they're educated about culture and value props. I mean, it's nurturing. The ripple effect of proper nurturing is incredible if you think about it.
Yeah, and it's really easy for them to opt out. So if they don't opt out, then we'll keep providing content and information because they're everything is about timing too. So the timing might just not have been right
Yeah.
at that moment, but 2 years from now their kids are out of school and they're ready to really make something happen, and we want to be there to do that.
Yeah, and or when they're getting into that age where they might want to buy a franchise, mom or dad might get sick, right?
Yeah,
And or they need to help an aunt or uncle. And then all of a sudden they've been exposed to the world that your brand's a part of.
yeah,
Yeah, you're right. I talk to people all the time. I talked to a guy once who had a guy he'd been nurturing for 11 years that just called him. He's like, "All right, Carl, I'm ready to get started. What should I buy?" And he's like, "Whoa, like you forget who they are." I have people reach out to me like, "Dave, thanks for being so patient." And I'm like, "I don't know who you are. Like, how did you end up in my CRM?" But then I look at it like, "Oh, no. We talked at this event. I remember who it is, but I
yeah,
don't want to be callous about it." But nurturing campaigns are effective. They really are,
absolutely.
especially if they're value driven. So which I know we talked about before. Yours certainly are.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Pete, so fantastic. Thanks for sharing all these insights with us. Great, just like a base level understanding of what a great brand needs to do to continue to drive growth in 2025. If somebody wanted to reach out to you to say, "Hey, Pete, I loved your concept," what's a good way for them to find you? Should they look on LinkedIn? What's the best approach?
Yeah, LinkedIn is great. So you can find me on LinkedIn, um, or directly pete.first@brightstarcare.com.
Okay, rock on. Pete, thanks again for making time today. I sure appreciate you sharing those insights with us.
My pleasure. Appreciate it, Dave.
Thanks.